Hello, 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 and welcome to the Last Life Ever podcast. My name is Jeff Holst, and that is Jillian Sidoti. Jillian's not here. She's sick, actually. I don't know if you follow along in the Facebook group, you might know that her children have been sick this week, and now Jillian's feeling ill. So, because we do a live show, the show must go on, and so the show is going to go on with yours truly and our amazing guest, which we have scheduled for today, which is Colby Gardner. Colby and I met in San Juan about 2 months ago, I think, when Jillian and I were over in San Juan. I took a little side break and went and had a cigar in this place called the Cigar House, one of my favorite cigar houses in the entirety of the world. And I was telling one of the gentlemen that was there at the cigar house how much I liked it. And he said to me, I know where you can get way better cigars than this, which intrigued me. And he told me Cuba. And I said, well, I mean, Cuba, it's not possible to go to Cuba, but it turns out it is. And you can do it legally, even as an American citizen. And so we're going to bring Colby Gardner on right after this to share with us how he's been able to travel dozens, maybe hundreds of times to Cuba, and how you can too.
Help me, my brother, can you lend me a hand as I walk through this land of confusion? If we give to each other, then there's nothing to take. Let's live life for the moment before it slips away.
Colby, welcome to the show.
Hey, Jeff, thank you.
I'm so glad to have you here. I'm sorry that Jillian couldn't make it today, but I'm still excited to talk to you, and you've been super patient because we already rescheduled you once, and I just couldn't do it again. So
I get it. Things happen.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so as I said in the intro there, we met in San Juan in a cigar bar, and that's kind of what your focus is you do cigar-related stuff. Is that a fair way to talk about it?
Yeah, I mean, cigar stuff, cigar tours, yes, is what we do, but we also do way more than that. Just in Cuba alone, we have 14 different tours, or excuse me, 15 now. And
15. So you have 15 different tours, and I'm sure people can get information about that on your website, which is
right.
GardnerTours.com for people who are listening. It's GARDNER tours.com. So let me ask this. How long does the average person go to Cuba for?
It depends. So we have served travelers from 26 different countries, and some of them, like a lot of the ones from Europe, will typically come 10, 12 days. A lot of the travelers from, say, Mexico, Canada, United States will generally come for about 6 to 7 days. It all depends.
Well, I guess that makes sense, right? If you're traveling further, you want to stay longer, get the full feel of it. Now, I've traveled a lot in the Caribbean. I mean, I imagine you have as well, because we met in San Juan, and you've apparently been to Cuba at least once or twice. Speaking of which, how many times have you been to Cuba?
Jeff, I stopped counting about 5 years ago, to be honest.
So right.
We've taken, I don't know, somewhere between like 60 something groups.
Wow. So at least that many times, right?
Yeah.
So I guess, how long have you, well, first of all, how long have you been taking groups to Cuba?
So I started working in Cuba in 2012. Now, I didn't officially start my travel company until 2017. So for 5 years, this is something I don't believe I told you about at the cigar shop there in Puerto Rico, but for 5 years, I was working for a Christian missions organization, which is here where I'm living now outside of Atlanta. And, I was just working in the office and helping do the things there and manage people and all this and that. And my boss comes to me one day and he goes, "Oh my gosh, I just realized I'm supposed to be in Cuba and at a wedding in Miami at the same time." He said, "You speak Spanish. Can I send you to Cuba?" And I said, "Sure, of course." And I went down there, hit it off with all of our hosts and everything. And they said, "Can you please ask him if he can just send you in the future, because we love you. We loved working with you." I got back.
How come this never happens to me? I've never had someone to be like, "Hey, I'm supposed to be in Miami and Cuba. Can you just go to Cuba for me?"
Right.
Like that's pretty awesome.
It was really great because for the next 5 years, I was in and out of Cuba all the time. And they were sending me down for research and development and all that stuff. And when I got back from the first trip, my boss actually said, "Hey, I've been thinking I'm getting ready to retire sometime soon. Can you just take over everything we do in Cuba?" And I said,
"Wow,
absolutely. I would love that." So
yeah, that's great. So, all right. So tell me a little bit about this Christian mission that you were working with. What is their, what do they do? Like, what's their mission?
Okay, so these guys, they work with individuals and churches all around the world. And what they do primarily, they are short-term missions, which will go for about 7 to 10 days at a time. But they'll go down and work with a local church or orphanage or after-school program and help those local ministries or organizations reach and serve their communities.
Wow. So I actually have a ton of questions surrounding this because apparently I know way less about Cuba than I thought. I was under the impression that like mission related stuff wasn't even allowed there. So that's not true. People can go there and do this kind of work.
Yes, people can, but there are certain stipulations around it. So,
yeah, I would imagine.
Yeah.
So you've been going to Cuba since 2012, so about 8-9 years now. I'm guessing there's been a few changes during that time, because I might be wrong about the timeline here, but I think Castro was still alive in 2012.
Yeah,
still in charge.
I actually left the day before he passed away, and we had just had his, I want to say, 89th or 90th birthday party. Not long before that, and it's a big celebration in the streets and everything. But yeah,
okay.
A lot has changed.
Okay, so because a lot of like me, I think a lot of our listeners are Americans, and they, and you are too, obviously, they may have a misperception about how Cuba is. So you say it's a big celebration in the streets when this happens. Is that like a spontaneous celebration, like the people are actually happy about it, or is it some kind of like intimidated celebration, or some combination of the two?
All right, let's just think of it this way, okay? Like St. Patty's Day in the United States, it's just another reason to party for most people,
gotcha.
Right? So it's not necessarily that the people are really happy to celebrate his birthday, but hey, it's time to celebrate. Let's all get out. Let's be with our friends, with our family, our neighbors, and let's just have a good time. But yeah, there are things put on by the government and things like that to show, hey, felicidades, Fidel, stuff like that. As is during other holidays. So
it's an encouraged holiday by the government, and people just like to celebrate, so they celebrate.
Yeah,
is what you're saying. Yeah, that's cool. All right, so let's say I want to go to Cuba, and I do, by the way, just to be clear. I would think it'd be really interesting. So let's say I want to go to Cuba, and I was like, no, I'm just going to buy a plane ticket and show up. Is that something I can do, or do I have to?
You can do it, and I'm not going to say what I'm about to say because I own a travel company. Right. But you can do it. But if you don't speak Spanish, which the Spanish in Cuba is a little bit different than you would say Mexico or Puerto Rico. And also, if you don't really know what's going on, you can have a pretty rough time. I've heard horror stories of people going down that don't speak Spanish or really don't have much exposure to Latin American countries. And they've just, it was terrible, da 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 da. And I've even gotten phone calls from people in Cuba. Hey, we found you on the internet. Nobody else will help us. Will you please help us get out of this rut? Like, we want to make the best of our vacation. So yes, you can go, but I always tell people, get a guide, go with a company, go with someone who's been before, because you don't want to be another horror story.
Right. So I imagine the infrastructure for tourism related stuff is a little bit less developed there than it is in a lot of places that we typically go as tourists.
Yes, but there is a lot of stuff to do, a lot of great things as far as restaurants, as far as activities, whether it be sports or dancing, whatever. There's historical places, stories, music, all of those things, tons of
Okay.
stuff to do.
All right, so we're going to go just a little bit further down this track, and then we're going to talk about some of your tours because I'm actually really fascinated. I've been studying your website ever since I first met you, trying to figure out which tour I want to do. So I'm going to let you help me with that.
All right.
But if, let's say in this hypothetical, I did want to go on my own, is there anything else besides that? It might be difficult because I don't speak Spanish that I need to know. Like, if there are like rules about how I can get permission to show up, like visas or that kind of stuff. Like, how does that all work?
So since 2014, Obama opened up a little bit new relations. Not much really changed, but one of the biggest things that did change was that the United States had direct commercial flights to Cuba. And even before then, there was these 12 visa reasons to get in. And that also applies to the commercial flights. So with all of our Gardner tours, the offerings that we have, we qualify under one of those, and it's support for the Cuban people. Because we employ locals, we don't work with the government organizations because, well, according to the United States government, I can't. But one of the things that I learned is we want to give people the most authentic and cultural connection and experience. And that's one of the things we thrive on. And so, yeah, you will have to get a visa. You will have to get a flight. Now, it doesn't matter where you're coming from. Now, so for example, if you're coming from Europe and you stop in Atlanta, because you're in the United States, you have to get the visa. So for American citizens, you have to get this visa. For some other countries, you do. Some you don't. You can go to ivisa.com and figure that out. Or
I see. So if somebody comes from Europe, it doesn't stop in the U.S., they may very well not need the same visa.
Correct.
But if you stop in the U.S., you need to have one of these 12 categories. Yeah. And I won't make you recite them. I looked over them. And, you know, they're, like you said, the most common, I think, for the type of stuff that I would be doing would be the support for the people, which some people say can be as simple as staying in like an Airbnb or something, because you're helping the local economy, helping the people of Cuba with their economy, personal economy.
Every single person we work with, we've known and trusted for a long time. And so that's one of the things that we really strive to do is help these people create an honorable economy and provide for their families. But as far as the visa goes, Jeff, it's super easy, especially if you're coming from the United States and you do need that visa. Your last flight before you leave the United States and go into Cuba, you get it at that airport. You get it at the gate. It's super simple.
So you literally just go get it right there at the airport. So like if you're hopping a flight from Miami to Havana, you just you're going to get in Miami right there. You don't have to get it ahead of time or anything like that.
Now you can get them ahead of time through the airlines, but most of them
there's no reason to, is what you're saying.
No, I've never had to get them ahead of time.
That's fascinating because, like, I actually was thinking about trying to plan a trip a couple of years ago, and I read all these rules, and never anywhere did anyone ever tell me I could just get it at the airport on the way there.
You read a bunch of stuff online, and it's kind of scary. I mean, like, even I get asked all the time, is Cuba dangerous? Am I going to get arrested because I'm an American? Do they hate me? Not at all. And one of my responses to that, though, is, are you going to do anything stupid? Well, no, well, you're going to be fine. I promise. So
basically, don't break the law, and you're going to be okay, right? So
exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, let's talk about. All right, so you were doing this. So you were doing the charity work, the mission work,
Yes, sir.
For the first 5 or so years that you were going to Cuba.
Yes, sir.
How did you transition away from that into taking other, like, just, normal people, for lack of a better word?
I knew that I was being led in a different direction. Now, one of the things that I knew that I wanted to continue to do was work with these churches and these different ministries in Cuba. And because I absolutely love them. And I absolutely, like, I don't know if we've discussed this before, but I love Jesus, man. And because of that, I love people. And I just want to serve people well, no matter what I'm doing. Even if I'm a trash man in the next couple of years, I just want to serve people and do it well. And so
I love that. Yeah, that's really great. Okay, keep going. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
So I knew that I was being led in a different direction. I wanted to continue in the ministry, but I also wanted to do something super creative and like out of the box, because my heart was just longing to do something like that. And at the time, I had no idea. I was like, well, I'm a photographer. I do mechanics because I grew up on a big farm in Texas. What are some of the things that I could do? And one morning, one of my buddies calls me from China, and him and his wife were teaching English over there. And he goes, dude, if you don't have a friend like this, Jeff, you need to get one. I'm pretty sure you do, knowing you, but it's that friend that you talk on the phone every couple of months, and it's just spitting out ideas. How can we make things better? What can we do to be creative? How can we provide for people? And what I really wanted to do, is one, be able to stay in Cuba with what I did, be able to provide for those ministry expenses, but also provide an honorable living for other people, because I know so many people in the countries that we operate. And like I said, it started with Cuba, that work hard, but they don't make enough money. And, they have to receive money from family and all this and that, or they have to essentially put all their sticks together to make a fire. And so my buddy calls me and he goes, dude, I woke up with a great idea. I know you've been trying to figure out what you're wanting to do, and I think I've got it. I said, okay, well, hit me. He said, well, you've been in Cuba for almost 5 years. He said, you have a huge database that you've put together just for fun, and it's so awesome. And he said, you've sent travelers there for free for years. And he goes, and you'd be amazing at this. I said, oh, spit it out. And he goes, dude, trust me, start a travel company. And I put my hands on my head and I said, oh my gosh, why have I never thought about this? He goes, I'm telling you, man, you'd be amazing at this. And I said, well, I got to do my research, and I got to make sure, one, that it's legal, but yeah, that's something I could look into. So I kid you not, Jeff, that night I read 36 pages of U.S. law.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, terrible. But I read 36 pages of U.S. law to make sure that it was legal. I bought my URL that night. I built my website the next day and put everything together. And in 10 days, we got our first booking of 14 people.
Oh man! So all right. Wait. There's so much I need to circle back on. First, I don't want to forget this, so I'm going to take them in the order they occurred to me. You said you started with Cuba, so that implies you go other places now. So yeah, where else do you take groups now currently?
So if you look at the website, you'll see 2 at this moment. And the reason why I don't have all the other ones up yet is because I truly believe that slow growth is better than no growth, and we can control quality and give the highest quality experiences and travel to people. So right now you'll find Cuba and Guatemala. However, we've got Nicaragua tours already built and ready to go. We've got Bahama tours already built and ready to go. And then Puerto Rico is coming up, and we're also looking at some within the United States, but I've traveled to, I think, 39 countries now, and most of them I've spent over a month. Some of them
I'm kind of jealous about this, actually. I've been to 38 countries, so congratulations for one-upping me. That's pretty good, man. I'm coming for you, though. Coming for you.
People that know me, though, I've been asked multiple times, hey, we want to go to Scotland, or we want to go to England, or Ireland, whatever.
Right.
You can do a tour. Like, yeah, it's not on the website, but if you want to do something, let's do it.
Cool. All right. So, all right. That brings me to the second point. So you said something that I think is really amazing. You said that you never had this idea. Your friend told you, you should start a tour company. And then like 2 weeks later, you were fully in business. And by fully in business, I mean, you had your first customers, right?
Yeah.
Holy cow. Like a lot of our listeners, a lot of our audience talks to Jillian and I regularly about how they can get their business started. And one of the things I always tell them is like, you just got to do it. Right.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what you did. You just said, I got to go do this. And you just went and did it right away on the spot. It sounds like you didn't even really think about it. You're just like, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
That's great.
As soon as I read the 36 pages of law, Jeff.
No, I mean, this is not an excuse not to do your due diligence.
No,
right? You want to make sure you're following the rules. And there's steps, and people can, there's a lot of resources out there though, right? Lots of ways that in the modern world where we can get the information we need to get rolling, whether that's forming an LLC or whether that's reading the U.S. tax law or reading the U.S. law in general, right? The immigration law, the all of this stuff that you had to go through.
Yeah.
So, all right. So you did that. That's awesome. Why do you think that you were so willing to just jump on it and go full forward into it?
Well, I mean, there's a few things that I could say here, but I can think of two at this moment. One, I had almost had 5 years of experience in Cuba. And, it started out with working with churches all over the island. And one, that put me working with, some of the poorest of the poor, right? I mean, from each end to the island, time and time again. It wasn't just Havana.
I gotta be honest, I didn't even know there were churches in Cuba. I just kind of had this, like, it's a communist country that's probably illegal to be religious there. So this is all fascinating to me.
Not long ago, it was looked at quite differently. And there are, like I said, there are still stipulations and restrictions and stuff. But and people can be Christians down there, and they can have churches. But anyway, so I had worked with people from the super lower class all the way up to getting to know some high-end officials and managers at the big-time hotels and all this and that. And so I had 5 years of experience of working with. To me, it was the full ups and downs of society, from the small towns in the middle of the bush to big time Havana. And it's funny because I was at a cigar shop in Gainesville, Georgia, which is where I live now. And I saw this page, top 5 restaurants in the Cigar Aficionado magazine. I'm like, I want to pull this out. And I go down there, and this was, I don't know, a year and a half in. And I started looking for this restaurant, and I couldn't find it. And so I finally asked the guy on the corner, I was like, hey, you know where this restaurant is? Can you help me? Yeah. So an hour and 45 minutes later, Jeff, 7 phone calls and 12 blocks walked, we finally found that restaurant. And it was 3 blocks from our original location. But that's when there wasn't really much reliable info as far as Cuba goes on the internet. And I realized that they were a yes culture. They wanted to help, man. And they're going to say yes even if they don't know. So that's when I started my my database. And it was just for fun. It had nothing to do with what I was doing down there. And my database had places of interest, history and info, phone numbers, emails, websites, when they open, when they close.
So how long until you write a book about Cuba? I feel like that's coming. You got all this info. You're going to write like the definitive travel guide or something.
I can't tell you how many times people have asked me that.
Yeah.
But it's funny. I heard an old wise man say one time, he said, the longer I spend in China, the longer I spend in China, the less I think I know.
Yeah.
And I kind of am like
that. It makes sense, right? You just keep discovering more and more. All right. So
to finish, can I finish answering your question? And so with all of that experience, that gave me the confidence to say, yes, I think I can do this because I have all these connections. And I'm naturally a relationship guy. And I keep in contact with them. And that's one of the things that the database did. It helped me keep in contact with people and remember things and all that. But also learning from the Cubans by mean of, have you ever heard of the Cuban hustle?
No, I have not.
Okay. And it's not a dance. So what people refer to as the Cuban hustle is, for example, you got 24 hours in your day. You got 8 hours that you're going to sleep. You got 8 hours that you're going to work. You got 8 hours that you're going to do what? What else are you going to do? Here in the United States, people may eat,
Watch
hang out with
television or something.
friends, watch Netflix, whatever, right? But the Cubans generally, because it's things are a little bit more difficult there to provide for their family, they've got 8 hours of sleep or less. They've got 8 hours or more of work. And then you've got these other more or less 8 hours in your day. What are you going to do? You're going to find what's at your fingertips, and you're going to make sacrifices, and you're going to get really good at managing what you have to make more of it, whether that be relationships, whether that be goods, whether that be knowledge, whatever it may be. They're very, very, very good, at taking what's at their fingertips and making something of it for their community and for their family. And I learned so much from them on those means that when my buddy called me and he's like, you've got 5 years of experience, you've got a huge database, like, people all over, you'd be really good at it. I was like, yeah, all this makes sense. So let's pull the trigger.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. The Cuban hustle. Solid. I'm going to have to incorporate a little bit more of that into my life because I think it's really good, right? So,
yeah.
And it applies to everything, really. I mean, just making the most of the resources you have, like expanding your reach is essentially what we're talking about. Okay, so I had a million questions, and there's some of them have slipped my mind. But so you talked about how you just made this transition, like more or less right away on the spot to start the business. I remember. Yeah. So here's the thing. I don't know if you know this or not, but there's this thing called the internet.
Yeah.
And in the modern world, it seems to me, and I travel a fair amount, apparently one less country than you, right? But I travel a fair amount, and I haven't booked a tour in a really long time. I haven't used travel agents. I just kind of go over to Travelocity or Expedia or Google Flights or whatever I happen to be the website of the day, let's say, and I go figure this stuff out, right? I read lonelyplanet.com or something.
Yeah.
And so do you think that it's something unique about Cuba that allows your business model to work? Or do you think that there's a place in the marketplace for this type of experience?
I think both, to be honest. Well, one of the questions that I got very early on often was, why Cuba? Like, that's going to be so hard for you. And I'm like, no, because it's so hard. And also because I have 5 years of experience there. Why not Cuba? Because naturally I came from a storytelling family. And that's one of our we say our two bread and butters of our business are storytelling and high hospitality. And everywhere you go, you'll get a story and a personal connection. And so I was like, let's build off of that and let's make what we do great. And so we're unique in that aspect, is we're not cookie cutter. About 60% of the tours that people book with us are actually custom. But there are pre-built tours on the website. And so I would say that because of what we do, and we work with people, literally, Jeff, every single location that we go, we want our travelers to feel at home. And whether that be, our host at our B&B or the restaurant owner, recognizing me or our other guides or whoever and saying, Colby, it's so nice to see you. There's an element of that our travelers go, I'm at home. I'm in a safe place. And
see, so I love this. So I've only ever been on one tour, and that was another place that's comparatively hard to travel on your own, which is China. Actually, it's a trickier place to get around. But
when you don't speak Chinese,
yeah,
I remember looking up and going, man, I hope I don't get lost.
Yeah, I got like 3 words in Mandarin, and that's it, right? And the signs are very hard to interpret. Like, I feel like I can bumble my way through Spanish signs, right?
Yeah.
Even because they're similar enough that I can, okay, I get it. That's like the policia, like that must be a police station, right? I get the idea. But but yes, Mandarin or Arabic, these are really hard languages to guess what the signs mean. But I actually see the appeal to what you're talking about, because what your pitch, I think, is, and I don't want to sell it for you, but I think your pitch is like, hey, I go to a place and I really get to know it first. And that's why you're doing the slow growth that you were talking about earlier. You're not going to say, hey, I'm going to roll out and start doing, tours to Puerto Rico until you've been to Puerto Rico a bunch, which is why I met you there, hanging out in Puerto Rico, spending a month. You said you've been to lots of places where you've spent an entire month there. Now, I've done that. I advocate that kind of travel. I love it. I spent a month in Puerto Rico, in fact. I spent a month in East Africa last year. But that's very unusual, and a lot of people don't have the time to do it. So if they want to go to a place like Puerto Rico or Cuba or any of the places that you're prepared to bring people, if they want to do those things and you can take the time to sort of do the groundwork for them, it's kind of amazing, actually.
I mean, and so I guess those two reasons really come hand in hand, is that we really know Cuba, and also it's one of the places that's not the most popular. For example, it's not Cancun. We don't do Cancun type stuff.
Yeah. Even if you take trips to Mexico, you're not going to Cancun, right?
No, because we want you to have a one-on-one type of personal cultural experience that at the end of it, you're going to go, we've got to do something like that again next year. Or that was the best experience I've ever had.
Yeah, because you're going to sell it, right? Like if I have an amazing experience, even if I'm not going back on your tour, I'm going to tell my friends about it. I'm going to say, hey, I went on this tour and it was amazing. We got to go to wherever, right? And you have tours like we talked about cigars at the beginning, but even for people that aren't into cigars, you have tours like, I think you told me, and again, I mean, you have like a luxury version of your tour, and you have, more scaled down ones, and you have longer ones and shorter ones. But I mean, the history that was the most fascinating. We talked about like the Hemingway fishing tour, and like stuff like that. So there's just so much going on. If someone's thinking about visiting Cuba, like, what's your short pitch? Like, what do you tell them? Like, what's the thing that makes it so that it's going to be the best trip of their life?
Like I would say, one is the personal connections and the stories. I grew up, my dad was a history teacher and was really, really good at it. But it's interesting. I haven't had to give this pitch in a while. But I would say more than anything, we're going to give the most unforgettable, unique experience of Cuba in a way that you'll have personal connections with the people we know and the people that play an intricate role in their society. And, you'll learn about the last 500 years. You'll experience the greatest food. You'll experience, the cigars, the cars, the art, the music, the history, the revolution, and all of those things all in one. And it's not a tailored just history tour. It's not any of, just art and dance. And so you're going to get the best of all Cuba while having an absolutely relaxing and personal time as, with you and your friends or whoever you book with.
Yeah, and that's another thing I think it's worth mentioning here. What I thought was most interesting about your model is that your tour group size is relatively small. When we were talking, you said, hey, if you have like 4 people, it's going to be a great tour. Like, get you and 3 of your friends and go to Cuba with me. And if I book a tour, you're going to show me around personally, right? It's not like you have 27 people and they don't know anyone. It's going to be somebody like you.
Everything we do is private. And we do have a team of guides, but generally, like I tell people, if you want me to be your guide, book in advance. We recommend booking 3 months in advance anyways, if you can. Sometimes we'll get them 3 weeks in advance.
Sure.
But I'm like, if you want me to be your guide, book as early as you can. But if it doesn't really matter to you, one of our other guides may be guiding you.
Yeah, of course. And the only reason it matters to me is because I like you. I met you and I was like, I got to hang out with this guy more. So I'll keep that in mind. And, who knows? Maybe I'll be going on your Nicaragua tour or San Juan tour, Puerto Rico tour, whatever you have coming out next too. That
Yeah,
sounds
man.
amazing. All right. Well, listen, so we're coming close to the end of the show here, and we have one question which I sometimes warn my guests about, but I didn't warn you, so I
No,
apologize in advance.
it's okay.
That we like to ask everyone at the end of the show. And I'm going to give you a brief warning. Then I'm going to ask you to tell me the best way for people to get a hold of you, and then
Okay.
you can answer the question. So I'll give you a little bit of time to think about it. Okay.
Sure.
So the question is this: what does it mean to you to live and we always say the best version of your last life ever, but it's really just what does it mean to you to live the best version of your life? Like if you could give that tip to someone. So think about that. In the meantime, the best places to get a hold of you, I think, are your website, gardnertours.com,
Yes.
and also Instagram, which is at Gardner Tours on Instagram.
Right.
Any other places people can reach out to you? Things
Yeah.
look at?
We've got a Facebook page as well. It's also Gardner Tours. I mean, it's the same logo and everything. But you can also find us on TripAdvisor. But
okay, great.
I always tell people, if you call the business number that you find on the website or Instagram, Facebook, whatever, it's going to come straight to my cell phone.
So if someone wants to talk to you, all they got to do is look up you on the web and give you a call.
That's correct. Or awesome. I can give you my personal cell phone number. It's the same. It comes straight to it. So
excellent. All right, great. All right, so what do you think? What does it mean to you, Colby Gardner, to live the best version of your last life ever?
It's funny because I actually knew what I was going to say as soon as you said that. So I want to honor my neighbor. I want to bring honor to everything that I do, whether that be by working hard or especially working hard, but also loving people well. And I would say adding value to everything that I do, to the person that's in front of me. My favorite story is the story of the person that's in front of me. And I tell that to our travelers a lot. And that's the most valuable story at the moment is yours, Jeff, because you're in front of me right now. And so I want to add value to the person that's in front of me, no matter what I'm doing, no matter what the plan is or whatever. I want to add value, and I want to do a great job at whatever that may be, by encouraging them, comforting them, consoling them, whatever that may be, building them up. And adding value and honoring people is it's part of the mix for me, and it's a main part of the mix. And I don't want to do anything unless I do those things well.
That's fantastic. I love this question because we get to the feel of what's really important to the individual we're talking to. And I can see how what you're doing, bringing people to Cuba, but also supporting the local economy, the local individuals there. All of that is adding value to the lives of both your customers and the people on the ground there in Cuba, the churches, the individuals, the business owners. And I think that's awesome. And that's our goal for everyone here on Last Life Ever, is to just get out there and live their life on their own terms in the best possible way. And I always say, and I think you'd agree with this, Colby, and feel free to disagree if you want, but we owe it to not only ourselves, but really to our families, our communities, and even the world to do that, to go out and live well and make everyone's life better by adding value, by loving them, and by listening to what's important to them and supporting them however you can. So with that, Colby, thanks so much for being here. I would encourage everyone to look up Gardner Tours, consider going to Cuba. And if a group from Last Life Ever wants to go to Cuba, I'm totally down. You might even be able to find dates that work for me, and we'll go together. So reach out to me if you want to do that, and we'll try to work on a time for us all to go to Cuba together. Maybe we can get a group of 5 or 6 or 7 people.
And Jeff, October 7th, they start flights back again every day.
Every day. Fantastic.
Yes,
that's good to know. So for people who want to go to Cuba, look up Colby Gardner at Gardner Tours, and you heard it from him. You can go on your own, but it's just going to be a better experience with him. And I totally buy that. I travel a lot, and I'd be nervous to go there by myself. So thanks again. And I really appreciate you being here.
Thanks so much, Jeff.
And I look forward to connecting with you again real soon.